today we're going to run through a flat roof install with ClassicBond EPDM as if we're joining onto an abutment house. Okay, so here we have our upturn where we're going to join onto the house. First of all, what we got to do is install our rust tape, which is along here, which has to be mechanically fixed into the OSB deck. Okay, so to mechanically fix it into the OSB, we're going to use our seam plates, 50mm seam plates, and HP fasteners. Okay, to EPDM can stretch up to 10%, so this is why any internal angle change we need to use our rust tape along it. Okay, so I'm going to go through this first install of our seam plates. So our rust strip is down. They have 150mm centers that are marked out. We need to put our seam plates at 300mm centers. And fix down. On this one, we're going to do 3 seam plates as an example. Fixed in with HB fasteners. On our rust tape, you can see it has a cellophane, which is our fat that we're going to go onto. Okay, so this gives a mechanical fixing to our deck. Okay, so as I'm going onto my OSB deck, I'm going to use my water-based adhesive, but on my perimeter, 100mm from the perimeter, I'm going to use my contact adhesive. Okay, so I'm going to leave, when I'm rolling out my water base, you'll see that I've left 100mm short on the edge and 100mm at the front. All we need for this is a roller. We're going to roll it out, roll our water base out, and then feed our membrane into it. So again, we can mark 100mm from the perimeter. I know exactly where I'm coming to with my water base. Okay, and again, all I'm doing, it only needs to be applied onto the deck. So roll it out onto the deck. It does not need to be applied onto our membrane, it's just onto the deck. And this install is wet on wet. Okay, so we don't have to wait for our water base to dry. Once we've rolled it out, we can feed our membrane into it. Okay, so what I do, obviously on a bigger roof, probably roll out about 1.5 meters onto the deck, and then I will feed my membrane in. Slowly feed it in. Once we got that, we got our next stage now. Again, rolling in our water base up to our rust tape. Okay, and again, once we've completed that, we can then feed our membrane into the area. So feed it in. Once we get to this stage, then we have our broom on site, and we brush it in to our OSB deck. Once we've done that side, then we can now start rolling the other half back. So again, we roll back, and again we'll leave 100mm on the outside, on our front, and on our other side of our perimeter. So again, our water-based adhesive, leaving 100mm all around the perimeter. Any roof over 100 square meters needs to have rust strip all around the perimeter. Other than if it's less than 100 square meters, we just use our contact adhesive. Any upturns, any angle changes, our contact adhesive is used. Okay, once it's all rolled out, we've got our 100mm on the edge. Being quite generous with the water base as we lay it down. Make sure there's no lumps or gluts in it. And then again, we've left our 100mm at the front, and then we are feeding our membrane into it. Once it's down, again we get our brush, and that's our water-based adhesive installed. Okay, so next up what we're going to do, we're going to install our EPDM primer, as this is going to stick onto our tape on our rust tape. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to tape our prime onto our membrane. Once the primer is touch dry, we will then remove our cellophane and feed in and stick down to our tape. I'm going to use my scourer to prime in, or you can use a sponge with the scourer on the top. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to prime 100 ml. We'll check exactly what our tape is, which is 100 ml. So we're going to prime 100 ml onto our membrane, which when then is dry, we will feed into our tape. Again, working the primer into the membrane, as most of the membrane on site will be dusty, and this gives us a clean surface for our tape to stick to. So once we've checked our primer that it's touch dry and it's not coming off into our hands, it's good to now stick into our tape. So what I'm going to do with my rust tape, I'm going to remove the cellophane from our rust strip. I'm going to come to the sticky side. I'm going to start feeding where I've primed into our tape. Once it's in, we can then roll it into position. As this is pressure sensitive tape, we need to use our roller to roll into position. Okay, so roll all the way along and into position. Now that is mechanically fastened and stuck. Okay, our next stage coming up onto our abutment house is we are going to contact adhesive onto our rust tape, up our upturn, and onto our membrane. So what we'll be using for this one is our contact bonding spray bonding adhesive. So what I'm going to do, just as I spray, I'm going to be spraying onto my rust tape and up onto my upturn. Okay, so as I go along, as I'm spraying, evenly spray along. Again, now I'm going onto my membrane as well, so what I'll do, I'll just put a bit of cardboard as protection, and then I will just come along with my spray and evenly spray along my membrane. Again, the cardboard just gives you that bit of protection so you're not spraying onto your existing membrane. And now onto it. Okay, make sure we've got all the way up our upturns, and again then we got to wait for this to go tack dry. Okay, once our contact is completely dry, it's not coming off onto our hands, onto our upstand, we're good then to start feeding it into our angle change. So again, slowly feed it in. When we come to our angle change, we're going to come onto the sticky side of our membrane. Again, we're going to work it into that angle change so we get that clean finish up the angle change. Alright, once we get to this stage, we can bring in our roller then, roll it along that angle change, and then we can slowly start feeding it up into our angle change, brushing that area out as we go up and into that angle change. Once that's in, then we're going to fully roll the area along our upturn, along our rust tape, fully roll it in over our seams. Once we do that, then we can get the back of our brush, our paintbrush, again starting from the middle and just working along, making sure it's nice and tight into that angle change. Again, working from the middle. Okay. Once that's in now, our rust tape is in, we're going to start working on our outside where we've left 100mm. Again, sit it into position. You got your 100mm along the outside, and we are spraying onto our membrane, and again our 100mm onto the deck. So once our contact adhesive is tack dry, we've checked our deck, we've checked our front base, it's good to go down. Okay, so again, we're just feeding it into the area. Grab my roller and just roll it in. Again, now we're coming onto the front face. Again, pull nice and tight so we get that angle change all the way down. Again, you can grab our roller then and roll it into position. Okay. So our next install, we've put in our built-in batten, as we can see. And then what we'll do is put your protection in. Again, getting our sprayable bonding adhesive, spraying onto our membrane. And again onto our deck. As we're spraying, I'm going to spray down onto our front batten as well. And again, just working along. Again, we take a couple of minutes to let this dry off. So once our contact adhesive, again, we'll check it. It's not coming off onto our hands. It's good to stick down now. Again, we're just feeding it slowly into the area. Slowly feed it down as we work along. Again, once we get to this stage, then we can roll it into position. So we're making sure it's down nice and tight. Again, now at the front, we're going to feed it down, pull it nice and tight as we slowly feed it onto our built-in batten. Okay. All the way down onto the front. At this stage now, we're going to do what's called a hospital bed fold. So what we'll do, we'll fold it in around. And what I'll do, pull it nice and tight. Slide it up into it. And then I'm just going to knock that into position so it's nice and tight on the hospital bed fold. Okay. Again, I'm going to do the same on the opposite side. Once we get to that stage, now our membrane is fully in. Okay. What we got to do now, we need to extend 75mm beyond our membrane on this side. As you think a wall trim will be coming along, we're going to extend 75mm as we've cut our membrane here, for it to fit in nice and tight, and the same on the other side. I'm going to measure out my 150mm. So I'm going to go 75mm from my cut, so 75mm, and then I'm going to go 75mm past my cut on this side. Okay, so again, this will leave us with 150mm 9-inch tape, okay? Pressure sensitive tape. We'll use this tape for all our details. On all our angle changes, we will use our 9-inch or 12-inch tape, okay? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna line it up into position. So I'll fold it over, fold it in half, and fold it in half again. This will give me exactly my center point. So you're going 75mm past the membrane on this side as well. Line it up, you're going to mark it, make sure it's nice and tight as you're marking around and around, okay? As we come down, it's going to come down this way, so we got a prime down here as well, as it's going to be sticking on to the membrane, okay? So mark around, and as you can see then, this is our area we got a prime here, here, and at the front. I'm now going to get ready to use my primer again, and I'm going to work it in to the area, and then I'm going exactly where I've marked. I'm just going to go a little bit past my line where I've marked, so I know I have enough primer down then exactly. Again, we're going to leave that to dry for a couple of minutes. We've rounded off our corners on our patch all the way around. We're checking the area where we've primed. It's now not coming onto my hand, so it's good to go, okay? So what I'm going to do, remove our cellophane. Remove it off, and then I'm going to line it up into my primer, okay? So I'm just going a little bit inside my primer line. And again, working it in to that angle change. As I'm coming to my angle change now, I'm going to come onto the sticky side of the tape, and I'm going to work it in along that angle change, okay? Once we get to this stage, then we can start bringing it up, slowly bringing it up into our primer. When we get to here, what we're going to do is what's called a saddle detail, or like a chop into position, okay? So we'll come this side of it, we're going to chop down into it, chop down, stretch it out into position, and down. Then we'll just work it in. Once it's there, once it's stuck into position, then we're getting our roller. It's pressure sensitive tape. All needs to be rolled into position. Roll it down. Roll along. Make sure we're right into that angle change at the bottom. And then again, we can grab the back of our brush again. Again, just making sure it's nice and tight in on that angle change. Again, just give it a last roll. And our last bit, we're going to install our sure edge curb trim, okay? So what we're going to do, you can see at the back of it, line it up into position. Our holes are already pre-drilled. Line it up into it. Our hammer, put a bit of pressure on the foam, 30% pressure. And then knock it in, okay? One more in the middle. Again, putting a bit of pressure on it. We're lining up our plate at the front. Again, putting that pressure, it will sit right into our built-in batten. So line it up so it sits on it, and then we're going to knock in our pins, okay? Last one over this side. And knock them in, okay? Once that's all in position, on our external corner, we glue in here, just normal glue, and sit it down into it. We're sticking it down into position.